The European Union has suspended direct financial support for the Burundian government. And this comes after the European Union concluded that the Burundian government had not done enough to end the crisis that has cost more than 400 lives. The European Union funds about half the annual budget of Burundi and has also imposed sanctions on officials close to Burundi's leader. Burundi's President Pierre Nkurunziza triggered the crisis in April last year when he announced a bid for a third term. He went on to win a disputed election in July in the face of street protests and violent clashes. European Union officials say they remain committed to providing emergency assistance and preparing projects to ensure basic services for the population, but without channeling resources through the government. Let's get more now from CCTV's Elena Casas, who's standing by in Brussels. Elena, this move will definitely hurt the Burundian people. Why did the European Union take this action at this moment?
Well, the EU is extremely keen to stress that hurting the Burundian people is the last thing they want to do. They want to differentiate between humanitarian aid that goes to projects to provide basic services to the people of Burundi, which will be maintained. That's 430 million euros a year in humanitarian funding, which will be maintained, and the funding which up until now has been going directly to the Burundian government, which makes up, as you said, about 50% of that government's entire budget. Now, the EU says they're doing this because the government of Burundi has been warned over and over again since the beginning of the crisis in July that funding would be cut if it didn't seek a political resolution to these talks, if it didn't seek to enter into national dialogue that the African Union also wants to promote with the opposition. And now they feel that the Burundian government has simply not heeded any of these warnings, so it's time to scrap the carrot approach and go for the stick.
Well, Elena, how long, though, before this decision is reviewed, or has the European Union given any suggestions? Did they say what the Burundian government ought to do?
There's no fixed timescale, but the EU has set out a number of concrete things that they want to see from the government of Burundi. The first, as I said, is to enter into talks with the opposition, into a national dialogue process. The other is to start carrying out a judicial and legal process to try and find those responsible for humanitarian rights abuses, arrest them and try them. The EU says it has clear evidence that the security forces of Burundi, among other people, have been responsible for arbitrary detentions, arbitrary killings and sexual violence in Burundi since last July, and it wants to see those responsible face justice before this funding can be restored.
Right, Elena Casas for us there in Brussels.